In the previous video, we looked at various aspects of vSphere 6.0 single sign-on architecture, and we also did an extensive lab to acquaint you with the CLI. In this video, we are going to look at vSphere 6.x certificate management, and we will focus on it as it looks through the web client, and we will have an extensive lab again that will look at the various CLI tools that are available, such as the certificate manager and the cert tool. So I'm now logged in into my vCenter, which is at address .224, and I have changed directory to /user/lib VMware VMCA bin. And if I do an ls, you can see there are two tools in there. One is called the certificate manager and the other is called the cert tool. We're going to focus on the certificate manager and just a little bit on the cert tool. They actually obviously allow us to manage certificate. So let's take a look at, let's do an ls here. So we had the certificate manager /certificate, hit the enter key, and we get this nice menu. As you can see, the option 1, we can replace machine SSL certificates with custom certificates. So machine SSL certificates are used for encrypting with the SSL for all the traffic that goes between the various components of the vSphere environment. You can replace solution user certificates with custom certificates, right? Or you can replace the VMCA root certificate with a custom signing certificate and then subsequently replace all the certificates. So if you go to like GoDaddy or VeriSign and you obtain a new certificate, you can actually have the VMCA as an intermediate CA. So the chain would start at the root of VeriSign or GoDaddy, and the VMCA would be an intermediate CA, and that works quite well. Or you can simply use the existing VMCA. You can, if the machine SSL certificate is compromised, you can have the VMCA replace that certificate. And of course, you have the option of, if you want to kind of regenerate your environment, you can have a new VMCA certificate being generated automatically, and then in an automated manner replace all the certificates. If things go bad, you can revert to the last performed operation by republishing the old certificates. You can go back one step, or you can reset the old certificate, which I think you would hardly ever do. I'm going to key in on option number 2 just to show you why this is important. Remember, I'm actually logged in right now into the vCenter, which is 192.168.0.224. So let's key this in. Do you wish to generate all certificates using configuration file? I'll say no. My name is admin_administrator at, remember the domain name is pactpub.local, and the password would be, and it will give me a message which says that the root certificate operations are not performed from management machines. I have to go to a platform services controller machine. So the management machine, it means that this is a vCenter machine. So that's what in VMware terminology they call it, a management machine or a management node. So we're going to now shift over to a platform service controller, because obviously that's where the certificate authority actually resides. So I'm now into one of the platform controllers. This is platform controller at .82, and I key in the shell command. Hit a clear, and we cd over to the same library, cd/user/lib. ls, we go to the VMware-VMCA, cd vm, to the bin, change, and then ls to make sure in the right place, and /certificate tab, and here we are. Now what we do is replace the VMCA root certificate. So we hit option 2, generate no, administrator at pactpub.local, and please configure machine SSL cert.cfg with proper values before proceeding to the next step. Press enter key to skip optional parameters or to use a default value. So right now we're just going to stay with default values and see how far we end up without actually having to change anything at this point, because I still have a few more things to show you in this section. So this is all standard certificate stuff. California, Palo Alto, IP address, I'll just leave that alone. That's fine. Enter the proper value for the host name. I will key in PSC 01. If this doesn't work, I'll have to check it in my domain name server. It's fine. Generate a CSR, certificate signing request, and keys for VMCA root signing certificate. Or I can already import a custom certificate and key to replace this root sign certificate if I have already generated a CSR and sent it over to like a VeriSign or whomever, so that we have a certificate that is actually available. So we're just going to stay with generating a CSR, and we will provide a directory path, maybe /temp might do. Okay, please configure the cert tool.cfg file with the proper values. Press enter key to pick or to use the default values. We're going to go with default values again. This is what is in the CSR, and we're going to skip this, and I need the so again PSC 01 dot packed hub dot local, and it did some work and says CSR has been generated. It's right there, and I need to continue to importing custom certificates and keys, or I can exit the certificate manager. So in this case, I will exit the certificate manager and go back into it again. We are going to try a different one, regenerate a new VMCA root certificate and replace all certificates, except we won't go through it until the end. And do you wish to generate all certificates using configuration file? No. SSO, same thing. .local. VM. Again, we go with default values here. Do you wish to reconfigure? No, the file already exists. That's good. You're going to regenerate the root certificate and all other certificates using VMCA. You can see that here, by using the certificate manager, we have the ability to do things in a very simple kind of a menu-driven manner, rather than do it with manual certificates, with rather manual processes, which I am going to show you next. Now let's take a look at the cert tool. We can't cover every bit of it, but really what the cert tool does is you can use a manual process, and it is part of the manual process of actually regenerating certificates and then replacing certificates. The certificate manager makes things a lot easier for us because it automates the starting, stopping, and the coordination of all that is done in a very simple manner. But we are going to take a look at cert tool. -- help gives us some information, but it is really not the best information that's available. Let's do cert tool help and then functions. So it's a kind of a difficult thing to look at here. So we just do a more. Here we are. So we can there are 14 management functions that says you can generate a key, you can generate a private and a public key pair, you can generate a new certificate, you can get the root CA, you can revoke certificates, you can view certificates in human readable form, you can list all the certificates in a given server, you can take a certificate, you can this is deprecated. Data status takes the certificate and sends it to server to check if the certificate has been revoked. View a CRL in human readable format, and so on. We really don't want to use most of these almost all the time. Here we go. We generate a self-signed CA certificate based on values in the config file, and then the gen self CA certificate would be that option. Gen a CSR from a certificate, would be one of the few other options that are available. So let's give it a shot. So let's see what the steps would be to generate a new VMCA signed root certificate. Here we go again. Control C this. Cert2 -- get. So this is going to get me the root certificates for the CA on this machine, and there we have that. And then when I do this, I say -- server, and I give it the name of the other PSC, the other platform services controller, which is a .81. So 192.168.0.81. It gets me the information from the other side. There are a few other things we can do here. We can generate a new certificate here, and we can give that a shot. I'm not going to replace anything. We will just generate new VMCA root certificates, because this will be generated and then propagated with the VMDIR. So if we go up one level and go to the share and config, take a look at the files there. So you can see there's a cert tool got config. We can cat.cfg. And this is your template file for a CSR request. So the process would be that you would copy this into a new file, and then specify this as the configuration file to actually use. And what I can do is we can copy cert tool.cfg to packed pub.cfg, and we can vi packed pub.cfg, and the organization would be, say, change word. This would be packed pub. Let's leave everything else alone in here, and maybe we can change this to, this is just to show you how one would actually utilize that. /cert2, and we go and see whether we can generate a we will generate a private key, public key pair, and then we will do a certificate gen. Again, these are just examples to show you how to use a cert tool. So /cert tool -- gen key. So we're going to generate keys first. -- private key, let's say equals /tmp /packed pub dot private, and -- pub key equals /temp /packed pub dot pub, and the key pair has been generated. Now we can say // cert tool, and we generate a certificate gen cert -- priv key equals /tmp / and the cert will be generated. --cert is equal to /tmp packed pub .crt rather, and -- name equals, we leave this like this, packed pub machine, and the config file is equal to /user lib /vm are that vm ca /share /config /pacpub.cfg. If all is correct, the option for --config should follow. That's right, I have a space in here. And it updated the pacpub config file and so on. So now what one would do normally would be to stop the services, which is done by something called service control --all. So we're going to go through this, and it is stopping all the services. So the main daemon, which is VMAFTD, is stopped here, and it's kind of interesting. There are two Ds sometimes and only just one D sometime in the documentation, and we now start them up one at a time. Service -control, and we start first the VMAFTD. It's starting up. Okay, so that's started. Then we start up the directory, so vmdird. Okay, and then the last one is the VMCA, which is your certificate authority daemon. Okay, so that's started. Now once all this is done, so we've generated the key pairs, we have a new certificate, we stopped the services, we started the services, and now what we need to do is to add this new certificate to the VEX. So we need this certificate in the local certificate store. Okay, so first we have to delete the existing entry, and then we have to add the new entry, and then we have to restart all the services. So the command, now we go to the VEX CLI entry, and we're going to hit the enter key, and of course this is not in the right place, so we have to go there first. The right directory is userlib VMware VMAFT, which is the authentication framework. That's where we are. We do an ls, and this is where you see the other CLI. So the VEX CLI, which is the vSphere endpoint certificate store. We say VEX CLI. Let's key in help. See what happens. Oh, I missed the /. /vex-cli store list. So machine SSL cert, and machine is one of them. What we can do is we can list the entries. Let's try doing that. Entry list -- store machine SSL cert, and that gives us the number of entries in that store. Using the certificate manager is so much easier because it automates everything, the generation of certificates, the keys, the certificates, and then starting, stopping services and stuff like that. You don't have to go through this process that we actually did, where we stopped and started all kinds of services manually. But again, if you're doing custom certificates all the way and you do not want to use the VMware certificate authority, this is the only way to actually do this. Now let's go into a lab again, but this point not from a command line perspective, but from a vSphere web client perspective, and see what we can do for certificate management. So I'm in the vCenter 220. I go into the icon up there, and I go into administration. And as you can see, there are various options that we have available here. Let's just briefly look at system configuration. And really what it finds is that there are two vCenters, 220 and 221, and there is and its health is good and stuff. and they are vCenter servers with an embedded platform services controller. Actually, 220 has an embedded platform services controller, and 221 is connected to that same domain, or that platform services controller running embedded in the first vCenter server. Now, if I look at 220 from a different perspective, I look at it from a manage perspective. You can see that all the other options are available, such as firewall, Active Directory, and so on. But another one that comes up is certificate authority. So let's click on certificate authority tab. I verify the password. So I'm the administrator at site.local. Site.local being the domain there that this vCenter is, or this platform embedded platform services controller is actually doing. So let me key that in. And I have the ability to actually review active certificates, revoked certificates, expired certificates, and root certificates. So let's just look at root certificates. So here we have that one chain from our embedded platform services controller. It's right here. OU, VMware, and site.local. Right, that's what we have there, and that's the embedded platform services controller. We will not find any expired certificates or revoked certificates right now. We can do that from the CLI. Let's look at all the active certificates, and as you can see, the certificates are many more than the root certificates. So let's just take a brief look at some of these, just to understand what they are likely to be. So here's one. This is the machine certificate. This is the solution user certificate, so the vSphere web client, VPXD, and the VPXD extension are certificates that are used for our solution users that also employ certificates. And you can see again that this is for 223. That's another vCenter, and this is obviously for vCenter 220. So you can basically review certificates here, and you can check to see what the validity and so on. You can see here that they go from 8/17/2016 to 2026, so they are valid for 10 years here. In some cases, I found actually they're valid only for 5 years. For example, you look at this one. This is valid for 5 years. Not much you can do in terms of certificates here in the vSphere client, because it's all automated essentially through, if you use the VMware certificate authority. Of course, if your site does not allow you to use those certificates and and either you have your own certificate authority for the enterprise, or you use a third-party root certificate, then that can be done, as we saw earlier, with certificate manager. But you have to go into the CLI to actually do that. And again, you have two options in the CLI. Certificate manager automates most things, at starting services, stopping services, at the right points in time, generating the key pairs, generating the certificates, and so on. Generating the CSR. Once that's in, you can then import the certificates, so that the VMCA becomes an intermediate CA rather than the root CA. So all things are catered for. Even if you decide not to use the VMCA, then the manual processes are available using the CLIs that I just showed you earlier. We'll do a little bit more on the VEX CLI and some of the other CLIs in the next video. But just to give you a flavor for how certificate management is done, in vSphere web client, you basically are able to review things, look at things, and you need to go into certificate manager and the cert tool to be able to do things in a more granular basis. Having looked at the cert tool and the certificate manager in this video, in the next video we will look at SSO CLI management tools such as the VEX CLI, the DIR CLI, and the VM AFD CLI. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.